Welcome to the first of a four-part series in the Fundamental Four. The Fundamental Four routines that you ultimately need to create what's called a ritual design, which is the system that we teach of productivity and habit building and routine building throughout your day. And today in this episode, we're going to start with the AM routine and all the benefits and the power that a morning routine can give to you. Welcome back to yet again another episode of the Upgrade My Rituals podcast. My name is Kevin McKellar, the host, and this is the show for stressed out overachievers who are looking to ditch the 27,000 new habits that they want to create, but ultimately design their ideal day. Create a system that works, that they can really start to check all the boxes on their life. Their finances, their family, their health, their career, and at the end of the day, they feel really good about what they were able to accomplish that day, but more importantly, feel even better about where their life is headed. And hopefully, maybe that's you today. So welcome. If you are a newcomer here, welcome. Please consider subscribing and, of course, hit that bell notification to be notified of the next episode. And if you're already subscribed, well, then welcome back. So today's episode, we are going to talk about the morning routine, but more importantly, it's going to be a four-part series, and we're going to talk about the fundamental four in each episode coming up in the month of February. So today we're going to tackle the AM routine, and then obviously next week is going to be the BW, the before work routine, and so on and so forth, after work, and then the PM routine. So what we're ultimately going to be doing in these episodes is we're going to give you a very deep dive into each one of these routines, what they can do for you, what they should do for you, the potential that these routines really have, and why ultimately they're really considered the fundamental four, right? Why they make up a huge part of what ritual design actually is. So today, let's talk about the AM routine. If you're brand new to this world of productivity, personal development, personal growth, then this is the first time you may be hearing of a routine in the morning, something other than brushing your teeth and combing your hair and having the burnt toast and crappy cup of coffee. I highly doubt that it's not your first time hearing this. I'm sure that you're here and you've seen the CEO morning routine, millionaire habits morning routine, whatever, just this whole thing that the morning routine has become. And there is I understand why it has become that. It has so much potential, and it's, in my opinion, probably the most powerful out of the fundamental four. But if you only do the morning routine, it kind of comes back to the whole thing that I talk about and the whole reason why ritual design was born. I would implement a morning routine, and then I would go off to this terrible job that I had. Then I would come home and I'd bring all that baggage home to my wife, and then we'd get in a fight about something else because we were in a bad mood because of my world that I was deciding to bring home. And then I would stay up all night. So, this whole cycle of and these myths around the morning routine is important, but today is not that. Today is actually digging into why it is so powerful and why this, high-powered CEO morning routine might actually have some truth behind it. What we're going to do today is we're going to talk about first the three huge benefits that the morning routine has and why it's so baked into not only our physiology but our psychology in the morning. And then we're going to look at some strategy behind it, some things that you can actually do when you create your morning routine. So what's the first one? What's the first most powerful part of this morning routine? Well, in the morning is the best time of day to program your subconscious mind. It's comes as a close second is actually the PM routine, or right before you go to bed, the second you start drifting off, but that we'll obviously cover back then. But this is one of the best times to program your subconscious mind. And here's what's really interesting as to the science behind why, is because the actual brain waves that are transitioning. So when we are sleeping, and I'm not going to go too deep into brainwaves because it only really matters to the fact of why this is the case. When we are sleeping in a deep, deep restorative sleep, it is a delta wave. It is the slowest wave, and it's the most flat, if you will. Then we start transitioning once the first bit of sunlight comes into our eye and our eye opens and it says, oh, here we go, right? That is theta. And the waves obviously start to get a little bit faster. And then as we start to slowly, now we can also be in theta if we're in a really great meditative state. So if we're awake, but the inside is almost more powerful and realistic than the outside. But soon enough, once we kind of transition away from theta, we go into alpha. Now, alpha is the brain wave that we can be most susceptible to programming our subconscious mind. So what we have to do with that information is get really important about what we choose to actually fill our time with in the morning routine, and what we choose to eliminate from the morning routine. So we're going to talk about that in strategy, but ultimately the transition from theta to alpha is where we can get some real, almost hacking, if you will, of our minds and our mindsets. And it just to kind of give a little caveat here, brainwaves, from what I've learned is that there is no, like, it's no hard boom, 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 boom. Like, okay, now we're in it. It's a very, very free flowing type of things that we, kind of transition in and out. And there's a lot of gray scale, if you will. But again, we have to understand that that's why some of the things we're going to talk about is so important. The next real great benefit here is a psychological win. And what's really cool is that because it kind of goes hand in hand with our previous benefit of programming the subconscious mind, when you get that psychological win, you're programming yourself to say, wow, that's awesome. I'm definitely going to do that again, and it builds momentum. But the psychological win that I'm talking about is winning. No, it's actually a couple things. It's winning the battle of the bed, which is a huge problem for most individuals because of the fact that most of the time we are going against, the time we wake up is going against the grain of our chronotype. For most of us listening to this, you probably are a bear. And I've done an episode, I've touched on chronotypes before. I'll leave a link in the show notes if you want to check that out. But you probably are a bear, meaning you probably are waking up just a little too early than you really should be. Now, that's if you have a fairly easy morning routine. If you're one of these 5 a.m. club people, then you are really going against the grain if you are a bear. Now, if you are a lion, someone whose body is naturally wants to wake up bright and early, then you are right in line with this. So another thing to think about is when you create your morning routine is what chronotype are you? Right? When does your body best want to wake up? Have you ever had a stretch of a week where you weren't on vacation and drinking every night, but where you had a week and you had a week off and maybe you had a staycation, or maybe it was some other, unfortunate thing in your life or whatever, that you've just let your body wake up on. For me, that's when I realized I was a bear. So I don't wake up super early. My morning routine starts at 6:30, which is just early enough to be just a little tricky sometimes, just to kind of like, all right, let's go. But not way too early where I'm going to crash and burn, and not too late where I can actually really be effective in my morning routine. So programming winning and having that psychological win is battle of the bed, and you've got out early on time, the time you set that you wanted to, instill this routine that is investing in your future, which again, when we take a look at the physical body, this psychology of the human being, that is not what we want to do. We want to survive. That's what our primal brain, all the way back here, that connects literally our spine. It is the very primitive brain that says, run away from things that'll kill us, eat everything in sight, and procreate. Right? So we don't want to thrive. We just want to survive. That's the first one. Number two, the second psychological win you're going to get is that you're up doing things for you, investing in you before 99% of the world. That's huge. That's really, really cool. Now, again, I'm sure hundreds of thousands of people wake up earlier than you, and that's fine. Maybe even millions, probably millions. But the point is that you're getting a head start on the thing that matters most, investing in your body, your mind, your career, your money, your family, which is so, so cool. So that's a couple of the psychological wins that will inherently be in this wonderful morning routine. The last part, the last benefit that I know, and there's many other benefits, but the last real big benefit is that it's kind of strategic, right? So if you are having trouble finding time in the day to actually do these things that you want to do, trying to find the time to go to the gym and to meditate and to eat healthy or whatever it is, just wake up early. Wake up before the world is trying to get your attention. And so there really is some actual strategy built into it. And that actually leads me perfectly into the next part of this episode, is going to be talking about some of the actual strategy that you can implement when you create your morning routine. Some of the things that you can, ultimately that will help you. So going back to talking about kind of when our eyes are first waking up, our eyes just peek open, we see, like, we're almost checking, is it completely dark still? Is it actually 3 o'clock in the morning? I get 3 more hours of sleep? Or is it, oh man, it's okay, it's morning, right? The transition, in my opinion, to get out of the bed is a very personal one. And you have to iterate what works for you. Now, what works for me is a very, very, very quiet alarm that just barely fades in and creeps in. And what's really cool is that I've gotten so good at just kind of listening for it that, it doesn't even have to get loud at all. But what's happening is that I'm easing myself out of what may be the middle of a REM cycle and just kind of easing myself into the day. Now, there's a million different types of alarms and different types of settings to your alarms that you can do, but you may be the person that wants to, like, just this boom, like, just ripping you out of, just get out, like, and have some blaring, obnoxious alarm. Totally up to you. I like to kind of ease into it. And the most important thing that I do for me is that I do not touch my phone for the entire routine. I lied. I use the phone for my metronome to when I do a breathing exercise. Now, this is a perfect example of what we can do here. For me, I've been doing this for so many years that I never go on social media or check my email or anything during my morning routine. It's something I never have to fix or worry about, like, seeping in. It just never happens. I've done it so many times. So that's why I allow myself to use the phone, the metronome app on the phone. You can literally buy a $20 standalone metronome if you do breathing exercises and want something to keep the beat. Same thing with the alarm. I would recommend actually not using an alarm on your phone, because then it's right there. Your phone is right here, and what's stopping you from the urge, to log on Instagram and start feeding your subconscious mind, right? Stepping into theta into alpha, saying, oh man, I wish I'm not successful enough. I can't do that. These guys are on vacation. Oh, I got to go for work. Like, that's what happens. So you can set up an alarm. For me, I use Lady A, the equivalent of Google Home, if you will. I can't say it because she's also in the office. She'll go off. But it's a standalone unit that sits on, I think it's like the Echo Show 5. It sits across the room, so I have to get out of bed to shut it off, so there's no tempting to snooze. And that's just a couple of things to really be careful about. One, the couple of seconds when you first start waking up, because that can make or break it, right? If you snooze, there you go. You've already lost the battle of the bed. So then you start feeling bad about yourself, and then you say, forget it. And then, right? That's how that kind of escalates. Or I checked my phone, I feel bad, and then it just start escalating and we start ditching our plan already. The next thing I would talk about that would be a strategic move when you create your routine is to try to limit decision making as much as possible. Again, when we think about the state your mind is in the morning, especially in the first 20 to 30 minutes, you want to conserve that energy for positive thinking, for visioning, for a meditative state, if you will, or actual meditation for that matter. And you want to limit decision making. Now, a lot of that happens in your actual PM routine that sets up your morning. Again, another really great part of why ritual design was born, how this cycle feeds on each other. But we still have some decision making to do in the morning, and you just want to make sure, however that works for you, to limit that as much as possible. If you have 3 different types of coffee, know that you're going to just run through this first one and then you're going to do the next one, or 10 different types of teas, whatever. And again, you could set that out the night before, or you can just choose to have a system for yourself so you don't have to actually make that decision. Same thing with picking out clothes. Again, we do that in the night before, so we'll talk more about that in the PM routine, but just something to be aware of in the morning to limit decision making. Another strategy that I would implement is doing the hardest thing first. And this kind of goes hand in hand with what the morning routine actually is because you're actually doing the hard things that you need to do throughout the day. You're doing them first thing in the morning. But even within your routine, you may want to do the hardest things in the routine first. For me, I don't do that. What I do is but I used to, with that being said, but in my routine itself, the first thing that I do is actually read, because again, it's another easy transition from the morning, from a dead sleep to at the end of my routine, which is a pretty decent workout. So there's a nice transition there. So the next thing I just do is open up a book and start reading. So that's my thing. That's how I plan my routine. But what I do, and a part of my routine is a small little piece of it is right before I actually work out, is part of actually upgrade. And what it is for me, it's not necessarily hard, but it's a little tedious, and it's community outreach. So it's just tedious trying to build certain relationships with different coaches and just kind of emailing back and forth and doing different things. So that is one of the hardest things that I have to do for the business. So I make sure I do that when I'm the most refreshed. I am the most ready to rock, both mentally and physically. So that's my tactic. The last strategy that I'm going to talk about is the fact that I think, and I've had the most success with in the morning, doing something to release endorphins. There has been studies that say when you release endorphins first thing in the morning, they kind of stay with you throughout the day, rather than, if you work out at night, you only get the benefits of those endorphins for a few hours. But if you do something in the morning, now, you don't have to work out in the morning. First of all, you don't have to work out at all. That's your decision. But I would recommend at least moving your body. Now, one thing I picked up from Tony Robbins was he does this like a little mini trampoline thing. He bounces up and down. And that's something I definitely have to incorporate back in my routine a little bit, probably just back in my workouts, because there's very few things that that help with the draining of the lymphatic system, I believe. Don't quote me on that, but I believe when you kind of jump up and down, especially on a trampoline, you get that effect. I could be wrong, don't quote me, but that is kind of why he does that. And I definitely used to do that. Actually, I used to do that first thing in the morning when I thought, right, I was thinking that the only way to do a morning routine is this: jump out of bed and snap on your shoes and start moving right away. And for me, it didn't work because I wasn't consistent, because there was a lot of friction. I was already fighting against my chronotype a bit, and it just didn't work for me. But the way I've crafted it now, I've been doing this for years without any serious lags in consistency. Years. So that's how I work. Anyway, but you should move your body. You should do something, some type of physical movement, a brisk walk around the block, some jumping jacks, the bare minimum. For me, and what I'll do right now is I'll walk you through my morning routine. I think it's kind of important to get some context on all this. We did talk a lot about the benefits and the strategy behind certain things. So I'll walk you through what I do. Again, I told you how I wake up with Lady A, just kind of easing me out of bed. I do the granular little things that are not part of my routine, but they need to be done. I let the dog out and go potty, both of us. Give him some food and water. And I get my water with lemon, and I use lemon because I want to regulate my pH. So I want to, alkalize my body. So I'll throw a little bit of lemon in there, and I'll brew the coffee, which is literally hitting a button. And then I'll do really my first part of my routine, which is I read. So I read for about 10 minutes, nothing crazy. Second part is I do my gratitude practice. This takes 30 seconds. I have 3 little spots in my planner, in the Ritual Design Planner. So it's 3 things I'm grateful for. For instance, today was Quinn sleeping through the night, my physical endurance and abilities. Just, I don't know what I was thinking then in that moment, but just, I was grateful, and that's it. And then my loving wife, look at that. Oftentimes they're very kind of, I don't want to say grandiose, but just, large type of things that I'm grateful for. After that, I'll do a stretching and breathing flow. So I'll do about 5 minutes of stretching, 5 minutes of breathing. The stretching is often rooted in it's my own kind of concoction of yoga and primal stretching, and then the breathing is some things from my brass playing days and some meditative type breathing. And then after that, I will do a couple things for upgrade, as I mentioned, and then I will work out for only about a half an hour. Nothing crazy, but I find working out in the morning is the best for me. I did do, when my daughter was born, I was working out actually in the afternoons, and it was cool. Some of my workouts actually were better because I was a little bit more limber and a little bit more awake. Even an hour and a half into my routine, I'm still a little stiff in the morning, but the benefits I get from the morning workout totally outweigh that. So that's my morning routine, and it's not super crazy, but it's enough. I wake up at 6:30. I'm done with it at 8 o'clock, so it's an hour and a half. Shower, shave, get dressed, whatever, bang it out real quick, 8:15, and then we're off to the day. So that is the morning routine broken down. The real big benefits of implementing a morning routine and some strategy behind it. I'll look into my morning routine, and I really, really hope that you got some benefit from this. I would love to hear what either your current morning routine is or what your routine you are going to implement. And I'm really excited to hear that. So leave a comment below. And of course, like I said it before, if you aren't subscribed, please consider subscribing and hit the notification bell to get notified of every episode that drops. And with that being said, thank you so much for listening to the show today. And I will see you next week on the Upgrade My Rituals podcast.